these Epstein files, there's been so many names popping up that it's difficult to keep up with it all. Trying to find out who the next villain to be scrutinised of the day is. Being in England, of course, we get to hear about old Prince Andrew quite a lot, understandably so. And he himself, I don't know, he's had a history of scandals anyway. So for people in other parts of the world, they probably think this is a major bit of news, the old Prince Andrew thing, and for many people in this country it is, but for regular folks it's sort of like old Prince Andrew's got himself in the shit again, and you know, that's not wholly unexpected really. He's had quite a career of getting into bits of scandals here and there. But the name that piqued my interest mostly, of course, is Woody Allen. Being as I'm a bit of a film fan, as I've suggested in previous videos, and if the definition ever picks it up, I don't know if it's even possible. That white one there, next to the red one, that red one's a Carry On film box set. Next to that is this white box set, that's a Woody Allen box set. At one point, about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, I bought all the Woody Allen films and watched them all. Up to that point. I've watched them all up to about Wonder Wheel, which I think was about 2017. And the only reason I sort of kind of stopped watching them is because people don't really make DVDs anymore, and it's more of a hassle to get DVDs now. They probably exist, but it's more of a hassle than it used to be. You know, I did that because previously to that I've always been a bit of a Woody Allen fan. Like a lot of people were, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s. He's just one of those ubiquitous people of film. You can dislike him, you know, like you can dislike anybody really. But if you like his kind of style of film, then he's always been a good source. And he's always been authentic, which always goes very well in the film buff circuits, in that he writes and directs his own films. And he's very strict in that he doesn't like, you know, production companies or money men or all that kind of thing to come in and start chopping his films up and changing his artistic vision. He's a traditional auteur, and auteurs always go down well in the film industry. Even if you don't like their films, you have to respect their dedication to putting on film what their vision is, you know. Anyway, but he was extremely popular, and at the top of his game, probably, you know, late 70s to early 80s maybe. He won an Oscar in that time, and you know, he's one of those people that doesn't even like going to the Oscar. He's not really part of the Hollywood clique, even though whenever he gets in shit, people always, you know, say, oh, that's Hollywood being Hollywood again. But no, he's always been anti-Hollywood, which is another thing that makes him very popular in the cine world scene to film buffs. He's not part of the glitterati, as it were. He's just an artist trying to make his thing. But yeah, in the early 90s, you know, he finally got his scandal, as it were, you know, during a breakup with his then partner at the time. Oh, domestics, lots and lots of domestic scandals. And anyway, that all sort of like got blown over. You know, he was found innocent, and we could, the fans of Woody Allen could sort of like watch his films again without having to worry about whether they were supporting a monster or anything. But of course that did generate, you know, the group of people that are, every time Woody Allen's mentioned, they can say, oh, he's a nasty old this and that. And, you know, they'll never go away from that point, and they've always existed from that point, as it were. So from 1992, the star got slightly sullied, as it were. You know, the reputation has been dented enough that there's going to be a hotbed of haters out there, whatever he does from then onwards, you know. As I say, it was all sort of like normal again, kind of until about 2013, 2014, and then the Me Too movement and all that, and he was sort of like back being propped up as an example of a bad guy for some people. You know, allegations and possible scandals and all that kind of thing. And then the Harvey Weinstein thing, of course, he got brought up in that. You know, because Harvey Weinstein distributed a couple of his films, and it was like, oh, what's Woody Allen doing there again, you know, and, you know, the group of haters that has now gradually expanded a bit more, is sort of like, oh, it's him again, it's him again, it's him again. And, but yeah, no, again, it's like nothing really came of it, because he's just an old bloke by this point, you know. I don't really know what a 70-year-old is capable of, let alone an 80-year-old. But anyway, his name pops up in the periphery of a scandal involving a sex-related, issue, and it's like now his name's come up again in the Epstein's scandal. It's another sex scandal, and there's Woody Allen's head in the background, and he's sort of like the comedy farce version of Forrest Gump, isn't he? The sex comedy farce version of Forrest Gump. If anybody made a film in, like, I don't know, 100 years' time, and they could base it on Woody Allen's life, and all the most famous sex predators in America over the course of this time, from, I don't know, when he was born, 1950, to whenever he dies, I don't know, he'll probably gone to 150, won't he? But no, I mean, 2030 or whatever, 2040. And, he's 90 years old now, isn't he? Anyway, you could just have this film, make this farcical comedy film where, it's like Forrest Gump, but it's Woody Allen popping up with every famous sex offender, So Jeffrey Dahmer, and you can have like, we went for lunch with Woody Allen once, and there's Woody Allen having lunch with Jeffrey Dahmer, doesn't even know about it all, but and you could have him again, later on in his life, there he is with Bill Cosby, and having lunch again. And you don't know whether, whenever Woody Allen gets involved in these scandals, you don't know whether to laugh or cry, really. Because when you're a fan of him, you just know that every single time his name appears associated with any of these sex offenders, they're all going to be, rushing out to say, "Oh, there's Woody again, there's Woody, not Woody." But, is he just Forrest Gumping it? Or is it, is it just no smoke without fire and all that kind of thing? And, at some point it's like, will it ever get to the point where me having that on my shelf there is going to have, like, implications that I shouldn't even be having this, what some people believe is a monster, And, I mean, we're at a stage where we don't really know. Up to this point, it's the stuff against Woody Allen, possibly bullshit, but then the people protecting him, possibly bullshit. We don't really know. And I'm the kind of person that always gives people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not a quick to the assassination kind of hang 'em high kind of bloke. I like to sort of like base a lot of my philosophy on Christianity, and that everybody is a flawed human being and everybody deserves the benefit of the doubt and all that kind of thing. But I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how either the mob or the facts will determine Woody Allen's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, whether he'll come out as being just this comedic comedy bystander to this, proven horrific person, or whether he'll get in some way embroiled permanently in the despicableness of it all. And I can't predict that, nobody can predict that, but the thing is, why I take interest in this in the first place is not because I'm a fan of his necessarily, in that kind of, I'm going to go to his book signings and get the autograph. I'm not that kind of fan. I'm coming at it from the angle that I'm a film fan. And Woody Allen is a very important person for anybody who likes films. And he's got a body of work. For about 50 years, he's been writing and directing quality films on about a yearly basis. In the world of films, any auteur or creator of films, it's very difficult, almost impossible really, to find creators who make bodies of work throughout their lifetime where most of them are pretty good and watchable. You could collect together the entire works of Ridley Scott, for example, and it'd be like hit, miss, hit, miss, hit, miss, hit, miss. And, or James Cameron even, and it's like, yeah, hit, miss, hit, miss, hit, miss. And it's, none of these people are like pumping out fully auteured works every year. I don't want to put him on the same sort of like, I make a comparison between him and like Alfred Hitchcock, for example. Like Alfred Hitchcock made about 40 odd years worth of films, making almost every year, and pretty much all of them are watchable. There's very few duds in there. You know, there might be some 6 out of 10s, there might be some 7 out of 10s, but there's no like ones you like regret watching. And it's kind of similar with Woody Allen in that way. But the problem is people don't like you watching stuff of a person who's fallen from grace, as it were. You know, somebody has been proven to do bad things. Like a TV channel won't rerun The Cosby Show, for example. You know, it's on permanently for like 20 years or whatever it was, but now he's a bad guy. They all just drop it immediately because, you know, they can't be seen to be supporting the bad guy, as it were. And how this all interests me as a film aficionado is that it brings back the eternal debate of the art versus the artist. And my position on that particular debate has always been the art. I don't really care too much about the artist. I just care about what art I'm being engaged with. This goes far beyond Woody Allen. It goes far beyond any particular crime you have a particular issue with. And it goes to the heart of art, in that if you enjoy a piece of art, but it's later discovered, or it's later deemed, or its opinions have later changed, that we've decided that that particular artist was a nasty piece of work and they were quite an unpleasant person, should we just scrap all their art and not continue rewarding that art, as it were? Should we no longer be able to purchase their book or admire their paintings in an art gallery, or etc, etc, etc? There's endless examples of this. I could give endless examples, but I don't want to derail the topic by going on a sort of like a 10-minute list of all these hundreds of artists that have encountered this in their life. But the argument persists in that, do you like art regardless of how it was created or who it was created by? Or do you only enjoy art that's created by people that you feel has been created by what you class as a good guy, or gal, you know, say guy just for brevity's sake? And, you know, is the artist more important for you? As soon as you find out that they're a bad guy, that's it. You don't care about the artist. It's all about the person for you. Or are you just the art? And I'm one of the people who sits firmly on the side of the art. And this is the same reason why I don't agree with the death penalty. People say to me, but, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer, really bad guy, wasn't he? You cannot find a more perfect example of a slam dunk. He's done all these evil things. He's a thoroughly evil bloke. You know, death penalty. You know, I agree that he's a thoroughly despicable bloke. I agree that he's a scum of the earth. I agree that he should be removed from society in every way possible. And, you know, but I don't agree he should have the death penalty. And people say, well, why? What's the point in keeping them around? And I might say something like, well, he might write an interesting book one day that improves humanity. You know, just because he's done this hideous thing that our society understandably deems as a hideous thing, that doesn't mean he's incapable of producing positive content for humanity. It's like, you can have both. It is possible to be both. You know, you see this with the American Constitution, of course, all the people who wrote up the American Constitution, and then we're now arguing about whether they were nice people because, you know, were they slave owners? Because we don't like slavery now, but it was normal then and blah, blah. But Jeffrey Dahmer, I mean, he's doing stuff that's never been normal, really. Or at least not normal for like hundreds of thousands of years, or tens of thousands of years maybe. Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to think about that because it's a pretty horrible thing to think about. But yeah, no, I mean, if Jeffrey Dahmer had gone to prison and, I don't know, he'd painted a nice picture while he was in there and just, you know, a landscape or something, and it was all right, then I don't see why another human being can't have that piece of art and enjoy it. The talking point of the artist is obviously a talking point, and I understand that, and any victims wouldn't want to see that painting because they'd associate it with the artist, and that makes sense. But the art itself is not the artist. The art is just something that you enjoy. And the key to the point is, like with the Woody Allen films there, they might be his films, he might have made them, he might have profited from them, but that box set there, that's mine now. That doesn't belong to him, that doesn't belong to anybody else on this planet. I've purchased some art that is now mine. And if somebody wants to take that away from me because they don't like the person who created that art, that's theft. You know, it's effectively theft. And that's how I view all art, really. In that, once you've purchased whatever art it is, you've already detached it from the artist. It's no longer the possession. You're the owner of it. You're the possessor. That's now yours to interpret how you feel you want to interpret it. I mean, wouldn't that, you know, that would be quite a good way to perform a heist, really. If you wanted to steal all the Picassos in the world, you could just generate this massive furore about how nasty a person Picasso was and how nobody should ever show a Picasso again. And then either steal or pick up on the cheap all the Picassos that everybody's desperate to get rid of. And then, you know, pump up Picasso again, start releasing documents that, oh no, it was all bullshit, no, Picasso was actually a nice bloke, and everybody's like, oh, was he? Oh, really? Oh, we can love Picasso again. And then you're making millions, aren't you, selling all your Picassos you've nicked off everybody. Sort of moral outrage is very transient. It's not transient in the moment. In the moment it's very real. But in the long term of, you know, somebody's lifetime, it's very transient. When I was growing up in the mid-80s, everybody was very anti-John Wayne. Everybody had decided that John Wayne was a bad guy for some reason. And, you know, you didn't really see him on telly much, and he wasn't really featured in many DVDs, sort of like, you know, displayed, advertised in shops or whatever. And you couldn't really move for people saying how, you know, he was a bit crap really, wasn't, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, when I got to about, I don't know, about 35, 40 years old or whatever, and I'm looking around for new things to watch because I've watched lots of stuff, and, you know, I'm looking for somebody else to collect. Start collecting the John Waynes, and I'm watching them. I think, these are all right, they aren't too bad. Not, you know, it's not amazing, you know, that. Again, similar to the Woody Allens and the Alfred Hitchcocks, there's some that are sort of 6 out of 10. You might go through a phase of watching a whole load of 7 out of 10s, but there's some really good ones in there. And generally speaking, if you watch a John Wayne film, you're never really disappointed. I can own a John Wayne film without caring about who John Wayne is. I mean, he's been dead for 20 years. But that's just an example of sort of like the transience of it all. And again, why I think it's important that the art is very much separated from the artist. Because, you know, the ownership of the art is it's your ownership when you own it. And for somebody else to say you can't own that doesn't sit with me very well at all. In the highly unlikely situation where a victim of the artist was to come over my house, which is sort of like minimal to zero, I would understand, you know, okay, they don't want to see it, I'll hide it, that's fine. They don't want to talk about it, I won't talk about it. But to say that I could never watch Sleeper again because Woody Allen's a monster, No, I'm not having that. I'm not having that. I could list many films like that of his that somebody said I can't ever watch them again because he's a monster. I'd be like, no, sorry. Yeah. If you want to be mean to the artist, and you can prove that you've got a reason to be mean to the artist or whatever, then I'm not so much of a fan that I'm going to be rushing out and protecting them and all that kind of thing. This isn't a defence of Woody Allen video. This is me trying to make the point that he's created art that is distributed and that I've purchased, that is now mine. Whatever you think about that bloke, that's kind of irrelevant. In the same way that it might be very relevant for somebody, it can equally be very unrelevant for somebody else. And again, going back to the whole Christian mindset, not that I'm religious, but obviously I've been brought up in a Christian society, and so I have basic Christian ethoses that have shaped and formed my personality over the years. In that there's no such thing as somebody who's all bad, and there's no such thing as somebody who's all good. And just because somebody's done bad things, that doesn't mean they're incapable of doing good things. I mean, you see this practically evidenced by American jails in the first place. In American jails, they often make the prisoners work for their livelihood, as it were. They have them, I don't know, making T-shirts, or I haven't looked into what they make, but they have them doing jobs so that they can essentially pay for the prison they're in. It's all very commercial in America. Everything's very commercial in America. And so in the same way, that how can you sort of like go to a shop and buy this T-shirt that an American prisoner has made, and then say that you can't separate the art from the artist? Because them making the T-shirt is part of their penance, and then you're essentially saying that it is capable for a bad person to create a good bit of art, because a T-shirt is art. And in effect, it's sort of like part of the punishment that you're now having to do good for the community. Similarly, I don't know if they have this in America, but in the UK we have this thing where people who are minor bad people, they do minor bad things, they might get community service. And I use the word minor in quotes because what is minor can change from day to day. But we have this thing called community service, where you've done a minor crime and they might get 100 hours cleaning up litter in the community. And that's just an example of they've done something bad. Now they're having to do something good to compensate. So if Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, if he's in jail and he makes a nice painting, can you not appreciate that that is a form of community service? But obviously we don't want Jeffrey Dahmer getting financial reward for that, or people loving him so much they let him out of jail for his crimes or anything like that. I think he had his head. I think he was. I think they did do the death penalty on him. I think that's without question. So that's beyond. And I'm using him as an example because they did already kill him. So we can be hypothetical on this. And if they hadn't killed him, there was a possibility that he can produce good for the community. And now I'm not comparing Woody Allen to Jeffrey Dahmer, and hopefully that's the kind of hopefully the results of these investigations won't turn out that Woody Allen is some way involved in baby munching and all that kind of thing, that we don't even know if there's a conspiracy anymore. We don't know if that's too far out to be a crazy conspiracy or reality, that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in cannibalism or whatever. But anyway, that's just part of the argument, I suppose. But I've been waffling on for too long now, and I don't want to sound like I'm defending somebody who might or might not be a monster we don't know yet, as per usual. But with Woody Allen, we've been doing that for like 30 years now, going on 40 years. So for some people that's new and exciting territory, but for film buffs that's sort of retrodden ground. We're once again waiting on the outcome of the extent to which Woody Allen might be just a comical, farcical Forrest Gump, or whether he might be, you know, a secret monster. We don't know yet. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to, you know, highlight my position and where I stand on the eternal issue of art or artist. I don't want to go on for too long about that, which I already have, because I don't want it to sound like a defence of anything, you know, a defence of horrible people. I will defend art and people's ownership of art more than I will defend, you know, much more. You know, I'm not out to defend the monsters. I'm just out to defend the art, because I view people who go after the art as the monsters. The anti-arts in my worldview are the biggest monsters. You know, anyone who organises a bonfire and encourages people to go out and burn bits of art, insert anger of the day art because they're angry about a human being, then in my mindset they're the monsters. They might be committing a different crime to the monster they're complaining about, but to my mind they're committing an equally severe crime, in that the destruction of art is quite a serious crime in my world. Might not be in yours, but there you go.